Hi there, welcome to my channel. Today we shall be discussing an aspect of the IELTS reading question types, which is the true, false, not given question. This question type proves difficult to a lot of students. This is because they do not really have adequate understanding of what these questions mean. Just before we get to the common problems with these questions as well as how to understand them perfectly, let's look at the task. What does this task require you to do? Here, you'll be given a passage followed by some statements and be asked to determine whether these statements are true, false, or not given based on the information that you have in the passage. So the question is aimed at testing your ability to identify the writer's information in a particular text. Therefore, you should expect for sure this type of question in your exam. So let's get to how or the common
problems that make students fail this question type. Number one is lack of understanding of what true, false, and not given really mean. And this may seem simple enough, but many IELTS students don't really know what these words mean. And you see, we said really mean, not just what they mean, but the way they attribute to the question and how you can understand what they really are requiring of you. And then next is there is the inability to comprehend the statements of the questions and how they relate to the text, that is the message. Remember, all the way we have established that the IELTS reading is a receptive aspect of the IELTS, and it means that you are meant to receive information, not just to read written text. So the IELTS examiner is testing how much you can comprehend written text rather than how much you can read a statement. So most of the times a lot of students are unaware, or they are unable to understand what the statement of the question is saying and how it relates to the information in the text. So you can't tell if a statement is true or false or not given if you don't understand that statement and how it relates to the information with which you have to verify it. So we are going to look at all of this and how to tackle these problems. And then lastly, there is a lack of understanding of what is to be done about this question type. So if we take the first one, it says lack of understanding of what true, false, and not given really mean. So basically, you are told to pick true if the statement agrees with the information, false if the statement contradicts the information, and not given if there is no information on this. Now, as basic as this seems, it is not as easy, and that's why many IELTS students fail the question. So let's take a look at the first one, true if the statement agrees with the information. So lots of IELTS students generally don't have a problem with the true aspect of this question type, but let's try to take a look at what it means. So you can see if the statement agrees with the information, write true, and the anchor here is agrees, and this means that if the message in the question is the same with the message in the text, and you can see what we're using, the message, so not just the words or sentences that are written, but the message that these sentences convey. Let's take a look at a typical question. So it says here that the venue for the competition was changed because of the weather. So let's assume this is a question and they are asking you, is this true, false, or not given? And before we can go on to check the answer from a text, we have to understand the message this question conveys. It says the venue for the competition was changed because of the weather. And from previous classes, we said the way to comprehend is to read word for word and underline the content words. So what are the contents here? We have the venue, and then was changed because of the weather. So let's take a look at the text. Let's draw out the excerpts here. So it says the festival was held in the village hall instead of outdoors as planned due to the unusually high temperature. Now, if we want to get whether this statement is true according to this information, we have to look at the message. So what's the message here? It says the festival was held in the village hall, okay, instead of outdoors as planned due to the unusually high temperature. And what are the contents here? Instead of outdoors as planned. So it was held in the village hall. It was initially planned to be held outdoors, but instead they held it in the village hall due to the unusually high temperature. So if you look at the message here, you can see the sentences are different, but the message is the same. The venue for the competition was changed. Why? Because of the weather. And we were told that instead of the outdoors as planned, it was held in the village hall due to the unusually high temperature. So definitely this answer is true. So the true aspect is not really a problem so much. Let's go on to look at the false aspect of the question type. It says you should pick false if the statement contradicts the information, and we have the anchor here as contradicts. Now this false option is a really tricky one for lots of IELTS students, and it shouldn't be so if only you can just realize that false means incorrect. So the answer will only be false if the statement is incorrect. Let's take a look at this sentence here. It says the class started by 5 p.m. So what will be the incorrect form of this statement? If the class did not start by 5 p.m., then this statement is incorrect. Do you see that? So someone tells you, we started the class by 5 p.m. But when you looked at the CCTV footage of the class, you saw that it actually started by 4:30 p.m. So the person probably came late. So it means that the statement is incorrect. Let's take a look at another statement. The barbecue was delicious. Now, how can this statement be incorrect if the barbecue was not delicious? So putting not in front of the verb is what will give you the incorrect aspect of the statement. Let's take a look at another one. It says it will rain tomorrow. So how can this statement be incorrect if it will not rain tomorrow? That's how it will be incorrect. So this is what false generally means. Let's take a look at a typical example. So this statement here says Nigeria is in Asia. Now we all know that Nigeria is not in Asia, but you have to forget about this when you are dealing with true false not given questions. So you need to base your answer directly from the information given in the text, not what you know. So let's assume a statement says Nigeria is in Asia. Now what will be the incorrect form of this statement so we can get a false? If Nigeria is not in Asia, then it is a false. Now many IELTS students seem to think that false is like this: if the passage didn't say that Nigeria is in Asia. And you see this, it didn't say. No, don't approach false like this. So you ask some students, how can this statement be a false? They will tell you if it is not true. No, don't take it like that. You have to look for if the passage says that Nigeria is not in Asia. So if the passage says the incorrect form of the statement. So whenever you are giving a statement, first of all, how can the statement be a false? What will be the incorrect form of the statement? That is what the passage should say. So if the passage says the incorrect form of the statement, that's the only way it can be a false. If we look at the word contradict as the anchor here, contradict means to assert the opposite of a statement made by someone. You see, to assert the opposite. So the passage has to say the incorrect form before you can have a false. So false is actually given, and that's why anytime you pick a false, you ask yourself, how did I know? Because the passage says the incorrect form of the statement. That is how there's a false. So there can't be a false except there's a contradiction. So the passage has to affirm and say this and then you will say, okay, because the passage says the incorrect form of the statement, that is the false. Let's take a look at the excerpt. So Nigeria is in Asia, and if we have this text, it says there will be lots of countries from Asia, but the African countries that will be represented are Egypt and Nigeria. So if we take a look at this aspect of the statement, it says that but the African countries that will be represented are Egypt and Nigeria. Now, what is this saying? It's saying that Nigeria is in Africa. And what does that mean? That Nigeria is not in Asia, which is our incorrect statement. Our incorrect statement is Nigeria is not in Asia. That is the incorrect statement, and that's what the passage is giving to us, that Nigeria is not in Asia, rather Nigeria is in Africa. So false means it is not like this in the question, rather it is like this, the information in the text. So if we look at this very closely, it means that our answer is a false, because the statement or the information from the text affirms the incorrect statement of the question. So whenever you want to think about false, it means does the passage affirm the incorrect statement of the question? As we progress, this will become easier for you when we start answering practical questions shortly. Now let's take a look at the not given option and see what it really means. So you're told to pick not given if there is no information on this. And the problem of this question type is this statement here saying there is no information on this. So many IELTS students seem to think that not given means the passage did not mention anything like this, and this is a totally wrong definition of not given. So you get many students, you ask them what does not given mean, they'll tell you if the passage did not say anything, if there is nothing like that at all in the passage, or they'll tell you some people will say if we're not sure. So those are wrong meanings of not given. So the most common one is if the passage did not mention anything like this. Let's take a look at an example question and see how that is not a definition of not given. So question number 35, an excerpt says, on the longest post bus route in Switzerland, passengers have to change buses. Now let's take a look at the excerpts from the text. It says Switzerland's longest post bus journey, in one of the highest, crosses 4 mountain passes, an 8-hour trip undertaken by single post bus. Now many IELTS students, when they want to answer this question, they'll look at this statement here, passengers have to change buses, and then they will look in the text to see if the passage mentions anything like passengers have to change buses. So if we look at this statement here, is there anywhere the passage says that passengers have to change buses? No. So Switzerland's longest post bus journey, in one of the highest, crosses 4 mountain passes, an 8-hour trip undertaken by single post bus. So does the passage give any information on passengers have to change buses? No. So students will say that the answer is a not given. But is it a not given? No. So let's take a look at not given properly. So the way to understand not given is to look at this word here, this. This is a reference. And what is it referring to? It says if there is no information on this, on what? The arguable message. And we're paying attention to the message. Anytime you want to get a not given option, you have to look at the arguable message. And what is the easiest way to be pointed towards the arguable message? It is to not look at not given as if there is no information on this. This is confusing for lots of people. So we strike it out and begin to look at not given as if I don't know. So if I don't know about the arguable message, then my answer is a not given. Now, let's take a look at that previous question we were looking at and see how it is not a not given option. And so the question says, on the longest post bus route in Switzerland, passengers have to change buses. Now let's try to understand what the sentence is saying. It says that Switzerland has post bus routes. But if you are traveling on the longest one, so you see, so if you are traveling on the longest post bus route in Switzerland, you will have to change buses. So you'll have to move from one bus to another. So on the longest post bus route in Switzerland, the passengers will have to move from one bus to another. So how can this statement be a not given? So what will make this statement to be a not given? We said, if I don't know. If I don't know what? If I don't know whether passengers have to move from one bus to another while traveling on the longest post bus route in Switzerland or not. Do you see that? So, and look at what we did here. We didn't say passengers have to change buses. We are looking at the message, and this message is passengers have to move from one bus to another while traveling on the longest post bus route in Switzerland. So if we don't know whether you will move from one bus to another, that's the only way our answer will be a not given. But many IELTS students speak a not given with this excerpt from the text. Now let's look at the text and see if whether let's look at whether we know if you would change buses or not. Switzerland's longest post bus journey, in one of the highest, crosses 4 mountain passes, and it is an 8-hour trip undertaken by a single post bus. So let's look at this sentence here. It says that this journey is an 8-hour trip and you will undertake it by a single post bus. Do you see that? So you're not changing buses, you will be in one single bus throughout the entirety of the journey. So that means we know that you don't have to change buses, you have to undertake it by single post bus. So this can't be a not given option, rather it will be a false. Why? How can this statement be a false? If you remember our false, we said first of all draw out the incorrect statement of the question. So the incorrect statement of this question is, on the longest post bus route in Switzerland, passengers don't have to change buses. That will make this statement to be false. And now we are saying that yes, passengers don't have to change buses. So the passage affirms the incorrect statement of the question, so it makes it a false. So our answer in this case is a false, not a not given. So not given means if I don't know about the arguable message, then my answer will be a not given. So let's take a look at a question that will have a not given answer. It says the number of driverless buses has increased steadily since 2015. So what does this mean? It means that the number of driverless buses, so driverless buses, they are numbers, that's the amount. If you talk about 1, 2, 3 numbers like that of driverless buses has increased steadily. It has steadily moved up since 2015. Now what can make this statement to be a not given? The only way this can be a not given is if after reading the passage I don't know whether the number of driverless buses has increased steadily since 2015 or not. So if after reading the passage I can't tell whether the buses have increased, then the answer will be not given. So let's see. Today, the Swiss Post Office boasts one of the world's most advanced coach fleets, including fuel cell models and the world's first driverless bus. So we're seeing driverless bus. This is the first driverless bus. Okay, let's see if it has increased since 2015. This was launched in 2015. So the first driverless bus was launched in 2015 and it was launched in the town of Sion. Okay, and Sion is the capital of the canton of Valais, and it is one of the 26 cantons or one of the administrative regions that make up the country. Alright, so do we know whether the buses have increased steadily or not? Of course we don't know. So the answer here is a not given. We don't know whether the number of buses is increased steadily. We only saw that it was launched in 2015, but we don't know whether it increased over the time. So this is what true, false, not given really mean. We have been able to establish the meaning of true, false, and not given. And the good thing about this understanding is that you can attribute this to any statement in the word. So it means that even before you check the passage, you can know what the true of the question you are given looks like, what the false would look like, and what the not given will look like before even going to the passage to verify it. Let's take a look at some statements. So look at this question. This is a typical true false not given question from a particular test. It says here, the majority of working netball players are men. Now this is the question. So before even going to the passage to verify whether the answer will be a true, false, or not given, you can tell what the true is like, what the false would look like, and what the not given would look like. So we have the majority of working netball players are men. So if indeed the majority of working netball players are men, then the answer will be a true. So if by the time you read the passage and the passage tells you that the majority of working netball players are men, then the answer is a true. But if the majority of working netball players are not men, then the answer is a false. So if you go to the passage and the passage affirms that they are not men, then it's a false. And then if I don't know whether the majority of working netball players are men or not, then the answer is not given. It's as simple as that. Let's look at another statement. Attempts to find living thylacines are now rarely made. So attempting to find living thylacines, that activity is now rarely made. Now let's see if the passage tells us that indeed that attempts to find living thylacines are now rarely made, then the answers are true. And if the passage says that attempts to find living thylacines are now not rarely made, that means they are being made quite often, then the answer is false. And then if I don't know whether attempts to find living thylacines are now rarely made or not, then it is a not given. Let's take a look at another one. It says the class started by 5 p.m. So indeed, if the class started by 5 p.m., then the answer is a true. If the class did not start by 5 p.m., then it's a false. And if I don't know whether the class started by 5 p.m. or not, then the answer is not given. This is just how it is. So once you have the true understanding of true, false, and not given, there is no question in the word that you won't be able to attribute that knowledge to. And once you attribute it, all you need to do is to verify from the text which of these the answer actually is.
So this is where we will be stopping today. Thanks for watching, and do not forget to subscribe to this channel so you get notified each time we post a video here. Thank you so much. Bye for now.